Anna was 25, living a high achieving New York City life, doing everything right for her health. And then, in a matter of weeks, everything changed. A brain tumor, an ectopic pregnancy requiring emergency surgery, and a rare form of cancer, all at the same time. What followed wasn't just physical healing, it forced her to question everything she thought she knew about her health, control, and what it actually means to feel well. Today, Anna is the founder of Feel Well by Anna and host of Back to Basics, where she shares a radically different perspective to health and healing. We get into the exact routine she used to regulate her nervous system during recovery, why most wellness advice is actually making people feel worse, and how chronic stress, control, and emotional suppression can show up physically in the body. We also break down her approach to food after years of disordered eating, what a real day of eating and living looks like now, and the simple shifts that had the biggest impact on her energy, hormones, and mental health. This is a conversation about getting back to basics and actually feeling well again. I know you are all going to love this one. Welcome to In Alignment. I'm Annie.
And I'm Marissa. You were meant to find this today, and we're so glad you're here.
Welcome to In Alignment, Anna. We are so excited to chat with you today.
I am excited as well. I rarely get to sit on this side of the interview, so I'm excited.
I feel like so many people in our audience know you very well and have been following you for years, so you're not a new face. But for the people that are meeting you for the first time, tell us a little bit about your story and what led you into this space.
So, hi everyone. I'm Anna. Basically, I grew up very healthy, like in a kind of like the things that you see cool and mainstream in sort of the alternative health space now, my mom was doing like in the 90s. So I grew up very entrenched in the health space and thinking a lot about food and farmers markets and relaxation and meditation and, all the things that we sort of like loop into what a holistically healthy person looks like today. Then I went to college and a lot of that fell apart. Like I feel like happens for a lot of people. And I fell into some really bad habits, just like a lot of, drinking normally, eating or drink not normally, like drinking alcohol, but not like crazy, just like normal for a college student. Eating not so great, just like not really taking care of myself. But not only that, like I am very type A, perfectionist, hyper focused on achievement and very goal oriented. And like a lot of women who are oriented that way, I developed a pretty bad eating disorder and I was very hyper focused on the way I looked. And it was just like kind of this constant struggle in my life for like honestly the better part of 7 years. So I graduated from college and I moved to New York City and it just kind of like poured even more fuel on the fire. I was going out all the time, just not feeling my best and not living my best life whatsoever. And then COVID hit. And when that happened, obviously, like most people, I left the city, went back home to the Midwest for about 3 months, and then spent some time like in Massachusetts and kind of bopping around with friends. But in December of 2020, like what day is it? December of 2020, I started having some like eye pain behind my left eye. And I remember saying to my boyfriend at the time, I was like, it feels like something is like pressing up against my eye. Like there's something in there. It's very weird. And it was painful and swollen and red, but like I didn't look crazy. It was one of those things that only I would notice. So I basically was home for the holidays and my dad looked at me on Christmas Eve and he was like, something is just not right with you. Like something is weird. And I just broke down and I was like, I know, like something is wrong. So the next day he took me to the ER and because it was COVID, I went in alone and had this entire experience alone and basically was there for 14 hours. And by the time I got out, they found a brain tumor that was like bumping up against my left eye. It wasn't causing any vision issues, luckily, but it was definitely extending, behind my eye, extending into my brain. So after that, I was booked for a biopsy. This is when the story gets really crazy. Sorry, I feel like this is kind of going for a long time, but we're about to get to the most interesting parts. So I basically get booked for a biopsy where they remove, sorry for the graphic imaging. They remove my left eyelid, go up and over my eye. I know, I'm sorry. With a like basically like I want to say it's not like a scalpel, obviously, but the ability to scrape some of the tumor and remove part of the tumor to biopsy it, not the whole thing. while I'm being wheeled into that surgery, it just so happens that the nurse who was attached to my case was this guy that I went to high school with who was like, I hope he's not listening to this, but he was just like a little weird in high school, like very nice guy, but was always like asking random people to prom and just like kind of being like a little, I don't want to say pervy, but just like kind of weird behavior. And so I sit down for like all the pre-op checks and he's like, so like, how's your life now? Like just kind of wants to like debrief on like what's been going on for the last, 5, 6, no, 7 years at that point. And I'm just like, well, dude, I'm about to find out if I have brain cancer. So, like, I don't really want to talk about all of this. No offense. Like, I'm down for a catch up eventually, but this is a really serious time in my life. And like, this is high stakes and high pressure. And at the time, they had actually told me that they thought that it was a metastasized, like, to my brain, non Hodgkin's lymphoma. And we're really, like, kind of like if you have stage 4 lymphoma, that's not a good situation. So, long story short, it was a very high pressure situation, but he was just like kind of trying to catch up. I wasn't really having it. Basically, he didn't do any of the pre surgery checks. And so I'm being wheeled into the operating room. And as we're like going, into the operating room, he's like, oh, there's a bathroom right here. Like, you should probably take a pregnancy test. And I was like, oh, I don't need to take a pregnancy test. I have the copper IUD and I'm on my period. And he was like, no, like, it's part of our pre surgery checks. And I didn't do any of the other ones. Like, you definitely have to do this. So I take the pregnancy test. I'm getting on the table in the OR and they've already given me like a bunch of drugs to like start calming and relaxing my nervous system before they intubate me, etc. And he comes running into the OR and is like, you have to stop the surgery. She's pregnant. This was like an episode of Grey's Anatomy. Like, it was so wild, you guys. And I basically was like, I'm not pregnant. Like, I have my period and I have a copper IUD, which is like 99.99% effective. They say, like, we need to do the surgery. I'm 25 years old. Like, I need to know if I'm dying of brain cancer. Um, and so the anesthesiologist was basically like, okay, you have to consent to X, Y, and Z. Like, if you want to go through with the surgery, whatever. We ended up doing the surgery. During the surgery, they confirmed that I am, in fact, pregnant. And I basically am like woken up by the nurse and she's like, you're pregnant. You have an IUD. It's probably ectopic. You need to call your OB immediately. Like, do not pass go. Do not collect $200. Like, you are a ticking time bomb right now, basically. So the very next day, I go into another surgery and they remove an ectopic pregnancy from my fallopian tube, just like partially remove a resected portion of the fallopian tube with the pregnancy. And basically, like, I'm on the path to healing. But like, I cannot explain to you how crazy I looked. Like, I had laparoscopic surgery, so my entire stomach is torn up. And my eye has like the most insane stitches you've ever seen. Like, have you guys seen the movie The Goonies?
No, but I
Okay.
can imagine.
My sister kept being like, you look like this character Sloth from The Goonies, where he like has like a really like wild looking eye and like one eye is on the top of his head. Like, I looked crazy, you guys. So 2 weeks later, or a week-ish later, I got a call from my doctor. Keep in mind, this is all happening over the holidays. So like, everybody's like out on vacation, like really slow responses to stuff. I get a call from my doctor and basically she's like, this is really weird. Like, you have cancer, but it's not the cancer we thought it was. It's like a very rare niche diagnosis. It's called Langerhans cell histiocytosis. Very long name, but basically it was manifesting as a tumor behind my eye. And she was like, you need to get a few second opinions on this because most doctors don't know how to treat this. So at the time, I was actually in the process of moving to Boston. And it just so happened that basically the best adult oncologist for my type of cancer was at Dana-Farber in Boston. So I ended up seeing him, kind of like by a strike of grace, and did 12 months of chemotherapy with steroids and all of that stuff. And during that time, I basically was like, oh, I want to kind of like start a digital diary to document all of this because it's such a niche thing. I mean, now it's kind of not. Like, I feel like a lot of young people are getting cancer, unfortunately, but 6 years ago, especially like in my circle, this was kind of unheard of. And I had always been really healthy and really into my health. So I basically wanted to document all of the sort of alternative things that I was doing to support the more like allopathic medicine regimen that I was in. And that's when I started my Instagram. and it just kind of like blew up from there. So that's the background story. Sorry, that was long winded.
Anna, I send you so much love and your strength and your resilience and your tenacity and the way that you share this story. Like that would have broken 99.999% of people. I mean, what you went through was crazy.
Yeah.
That's just an insane story.
Yeah, it was crazy. And like, to be honest, I think having like the health baseline and the spiritual baseline was so helpful. I don't know how I would have gotten through that entire thing without faith and without the ability to like truly look inward, calm myself down, shift my perspective to use your guys' term. But yeah, it was really hard in like a very trying time in my life.
I can't even imagine. I mean, just the cancer on its own, going back to back surgeries. And when you talk about that kind of faith and shifting your perspective, and you also mentioned that you started wanting to supplement the allopathic care that you were getting. How
Yeah.
did you start thinking about your health differently and how you were going to support yourself and de stress yourself?
Yeah. So I think for me, prior to that, like, yes, I had a spiritual baseline and, I was into a lot of like kind of new agey type things, which again, they have their place and I think can be really helpful, especially for as a gateway for some people. But I think for me, I didn't really think like a lot of my life was oriented around myself. And I know that sounds really weird, but I kind of placed myself at the center of everything. And like my experience was so, it was like, it was the truth, right? Whatever my experience was the truth in any single situation. And it was really hard for me to step outside of myself. And that experience made me step outside of myself in a way that I wouldn't have been able to do had I not gone through that. Because when your mortality is threatened at 25 years old, and it's not by, a car accident or something external of some kind, which, like, don't get me wrong, those things are absolutely horrible, but it's something that's inside of you. It's your body rebelling against you. It's kind of like a biological betrayal that in order to get over it, you literally have to be like, to a certain degree, we're all on our path here towards something. Through that experience, I very much stepped into, believing in God more than I ever had before. And I'm a devout Catholic now, and that experience was very instrumental to that. I understand that's not for everyone, but the point is I think that like those situations, tough diagnoses, tough, periods in your life, they force you to remove yourself from being the center of the universe.
Yeah.
Ideally, not for everyone, at least not on the first try, but I think that's the ideal outcome.
You said something a while ago when we were talking. You said, I will row, but something else is steering.
Yeah.
What do you mean by that?
Oh, so for me, I think that, and again, like I understand that organized religion isn't for everyone. And so take what resonates and leave what doesn't here. But, you know, when I say like I'll steer, but God has to row, it's not that you're like totally submissive in your life. Not at all, right? Like we have to, and this applies to everything, whether you're going through an illness or a job change or a relationship, or you're trying to find the love of your life, or you're, trying to find your dream career, whatever it looks like. You have to take steps to go towards that, whatever you're aiming for. And simultaneously, and this is the hard part, understand that at least for me, I've always felt like there was something bigger, God, steering me in the direction of where I'm supposed to go, right? And I think this goes hand in hand with what I was saying earlier about sort of removing myself from the center of my life is like, I was very much like, I'm going to make this happen for myself on my own time. I'm going to do this, this, and this. And I've realized so much in my life, you guys, that when we get so hyper fixated on what we want and making what we want happen, it robs us from getting what we need.
Yeah.
And for me, the cancer was what I needed. It's not what I wanted, right? It was a very painful experience. It broke me in ways that like I now as a 30-year-old looking back on my 25-year-old self, I'm like, I don't even know how I did that. But it was what I needed in order to get to the next step of my personal development so that I could be a more whole version of myself, someone who didn't take things so seriously, someone who really like relished in everyday life, someone who was able to move through um, you know, anxiety and depression and all of these things because I was able to step out of the bubble of myself and be like, it's not all that deep. We are all going to die one day. And if we are constantly focused on what we want, it really does rob us of, like I said, getting what we need. Does that make sense?
100%. I mean, you could make me cry because I've had a very similar, not on the health side, not to the degree, but in
Yeah.
other elements of my life where I've been through things where I'm looking at God and I'm like, why would you do this to me? And something I'm coming back to, you said earlier, you described yourself as very perfectionistic, very type A. Annie and I both describe ourselves that way. When you're like that, you have a very tight grip of control on your life.
Yep.
And then things happen where you realize I not only can't control this, maybe the controlling itself is what is making me ill, causing my problems. And when you loosen up that grip and allow for a little bit of trust, things really shift for you. And I think that what you're kind of describing is if you are extra holding tight sometimes, something really big almost has to come around to take you off of that. And it's interesting how many women we talk to that are that archetype. And it does take something, again, your story is particularly challenging, but a lot of women who are in that kind of archetype have similar experiences where it's like the first thing that makes them lift that grip of control.
Yeah, it's very difficult when you're like in the throes of it, as you well know, right? But I think what you said is so true of like, is this experience actually challenging me, or is my lack of control over this experience challenging me? I had a very similar situation when I met my husband. Like, I wanted to meet my husband, right? And like, I was kind of like, I'm going to make this happen. Like, I know what type of relationship I'm looking for. I know what type of guy I'm looking for. Bida bada boom. And it wasn't until I like truly was able to be like, actually, to be honest, I am really happy in my life. And a man would add so much to that. And I know that, but I'm not desperately grasping for it the way that I once was. So it's really hard because, you know, us type A girls, like it's nice because we definitely know how to work hard and we definitely, keep everything very meticulous in our lives. But sometimes I look at my friends who are like hyper type B and I'm like, that kind of looks pretty nice where you're just letting things happen and roll off your back.
I love your point too on not taking life too seriously because,
Yeah.
and this is what I kind of want to segue into is when everything is so serious or we get so worked up over everything or we can't sleep because we're stressed about like the details of something that's a little bit out of our control. We are keeping, as Marissa was saying, our body in a clenched state, which
Mm,
literally has a physiological and biological effect on our health.
yeah.
And I want to talk a little bit. You mentioned the emotional root of disease in prior conversations through some of your content and how chronic stress and emotional suppression can contribute to serious illness. How did you, and obviously your story is a big part of it, but what are your thoughts around that, your lived experience, and what do you do on a daily basis to detach yourself a bit? Like, how do you actually practice just letting go in that art of just continuous surrender?
Well, you caught me at a good time because I'm actually coming off of like a week of just like total anxious mayhem in my life. There's a lot going on from like a personal perspective, like moving and, career and like my husband's gone all the time. And, we're starting to think about having kids and all this stuff. And then like on top of it, there's just a like, and I'm very blessed for this situation, but I think, I never really thought about how it would be to go through different times in my life when there's a lot of eyes on me. So sometimes that can make you anxious as well. But again, I'm grateful. It's just something that I think I'm like still orienting myself around. But I think for me, something that's really important, and I think a lot of women will understand this, is I've noticed that the majority of these like anxious episodes or episodes when I feel like I'm like you said, losing sleep or like just like kind of ruminating and pontificating on the same thing over and over again, it does correspond with my cycle. And I know people are probably like we're just going to reduce women down to their periods. That's not what I'm saying at all. But we have to recognize that these hormonal fluctuations throughout the month are part of us as women, and they can be our superpower if we know how to use them, but it can also be really detrimental if we don't, and if we're not really taking care of ourselves hormonally. So let me give you a more tangible example for the people listening. I think, especially during my luteal phase, so leading up to my period, after you ovulate, you like ideally feel amazing when you're ovulating. And then in your luteal phase, like your baby, your body like wants you to have a baby, right? If you are premenopausal, your body is like, okay, make a baby, make a baby, make a baby, regardless of if you even like had sex that month. Sorry, we're getting a little graphic. But the point is that like that causes a lot of us to feel like disconnected from ourselves. Like we don't want to leave the house. Maybe we even feel like we look different. We're bloating more, like all of the things that would go along with having a child, right? Or being pregnant. So for me, I get really anxious during this time period, but I've realized that it's because oftentimes, like it's not hormonal. I've done all of the tests that you can imagine. What it is that oftentimes like we become circumstantially bound to how we're feeling. So like the way I'm feeling no longer dictates what I do in my life. So even if I'm anxious, even if I'm tired, I am getting out for a walk in the morning. No phone. I like take my, well-loved mug with my drip decaf coffee and some cream, and I like walk around my neighborhood in the burbs, and it is listen to the birds chirp, and it's beautiful outside, and it is like true relaxation and meditation without, sitting down and like you know, doing a meditation. So that's one thing. But also, like, guys, the phones are like not good for us. And I know that that is very counterintuitive to what I do for a living because my living is made on social media. But I have implemented and I'm continuing to work on implementing, especially during this time of the month, but like kind of in general, way stricter controls around my screen time, especially leading up to bed. Because if you're having trouble falling asleep or ruminating, like look at your screen time. It's going to tell a story that you probably don't want to hear. I think no phone like 3 hours before bed. And I know that's crazy, but the way you will see a dramatic change in your sleep, it's like, it's truly no joke. And then I mentioned with the caffeine, or sorry, with my coffee in the morning, caffeine also is like, I don't want to say it's like the root of all evil, but it is effing with our hormones. And when we are feeling this like type of way of anxious or spirally or whatever, the first thing I do is like I step away from caffeine. It does not help. It pours fuel on the fire of any feeling that you feel. And it just dampens things. And it sucks when you're getting off of it because you might have the headaches or the withdrawal symptoms, but like that's kind of the price we have to pay for being addicted to something. And it sucks. But like once you are truly off of it, you feel amazing. But like I said, I am also very religious. So going to church and reading and prayer and all of those things and like getting outside in my garden and like enjoying being outdoors, I think like one of the most healing things you can do is leave your phone at home and go for a walk and like truly be outside. It's a perspective shifter like none other, but something that like, it's so elementary, but I think a lot of people, it's easier to sit inside and scroll. And especially when we have the jobs that are on the computers, like it's just not a good melding of all the different things. Does that answer the question?
Totally.
Completely.
Okay, sorry. I feel like I kind of like took a weird avenue to get there, but I think a lot of women will understand the luteal phase thing because it's so real.
It is. And also the way you talk about feeling better. So your content is very much in this vein. But one of the things that I've come to believe, and Annie and I talk about a lot, is when you're thinking about, well, like a lot of people aren't feeling good. A lot of people
Yeah.
have like, are just feeling bad in their life, in their spirit, in their bodies. And there is so much noise in wellness. And the things that you're saying, and where my brain now goes when I'm not feeling good, is how can we live more like the way that we were intended to live? How can we get back to what our bodies are supposed to have, supposed to be consuming, supposed to we're like designed for. And the things you just said are like our phones are creating ADHD, ADD tendencies. They're exposing us to things we shouldn't be exposed to. Being outside in nature, um, not, drinking water instead of caffeine, eating foods that are as close as possible to the way that the earth intended. Instead of like, you don't need all the goops and the powders and the whatevers. It's like we're sold so many things to heal from the fact that we're just living so far from the way we were intended to live. And so what I love about the advice you just gave is it's like, yeah, it might seem simplistic, but actually taking care of ourselves is way more simple than they want us to believe because they can't charge us for that.
Quick break before we get back into the episode. If you've ever felt like you've done everything you're supposed to do and you still feel stuck, this is for you. Maybe you've tried the supplements, the protocols, the therapy, the books, the podcasts, the self development work. And while some of it's helped, something still feels unresolved because there's a layer of your health and your life that those things often don't touch. The same pattern shaping your stress, your relationships, your career, your symptoms, and the way you move through the world are way more connected than you think. That's why we built Shift. The Shift method helps women identify the patterns keeping them stuck, work with their nervous system to create lasting change from the inside out. Our one on one coaching practice is now open. If you're ready to stop managing symptoms and start getting to the root of what's keeping you stuck, you can book a free consultation through the link in our show notes. And this fall, we're launching the Shift membership, a place to practice the Shift method alongside a community of women doing the exact same work. Together, we'll explore the areas of your life where women get stuck the most often: relationships, career, health, anxiety, purpose, rest, and more, and build the tools to create real, lasting transformation. Join the waitlist today to lock in founder member pricing for life. Now back to the episode.
1,000%. Like, the truth is that, Nonna in Italy, who smokes cigarettes and eats pasta every day, but loves her family and gets outside and like is enjoying pursuing things in her life that bring her joy and peace, is going to outlive most of the biohackers in the world, right? She
Yeah.
doesn't have the red light device. She doesn't have the cold plunge in the sauna or the meditation app, but she has something that our ancestors actually thrived on, which is true relationships and love and, something to pursue that really like gives her life and faith and things that are like real and tangible. And that's an unsexy truth. And also, you can't make any money off of it. But that's also like, that's why I called my podcast Back to Basics, because it's like, a lot of like the final boss of getting well isn't being a biohacker. It's like living like your great grandfather,
Yes.
you know?
It's
1000.
also it's also the simplest things. Like,
Mhm.
I always share the story, but when I was perfectly optimizing my supplements, my diet, I wasn't eating any sugar, I was eating 100% organic, like X, Y, and Z. I ironically felt my worst.
Yeah.
Now I eat everything from grass-fed organic dairy to homemade pasta to a full-blown ice cream if I'm in the mood for it, with
Right.
community, without stress, move my body. I work out. Last night I was gonna go to a weight class and I was like, I really don't feel like it. I'm on the end of my period. I just want to be in community. I want something cozy. Like, I want to not wear sneakers. I want to wear Uggs. I went to a bar class. It's like
Love it.
whatever. And I move more, and I literally feel the best I have ever felt because I am not like manipulating myself into a certain rigid structure. And I think that that is so true.
Yeah.
How do you practice that? Because also your recipes are fantastic. I like screenshot and make so many of them. Tell us like how you implement that way of living in a day to day.
Yeah. Well, thank you for the recipe comment. So like I said, I think for me, like my morning routine has really been honed over the past few years. It makes it easy when you work for yourself and you have ultimate flexibility, but like I worked corporate forever and I was still able to implement some of this stuff. I think people underestimate how important early morning sunlight and then like dusk evening time, like sun going down sunlight really is, because it helps set your circadian rhythm. And I know I'm talking about things that like Nona in Italy doesn't know anything about, but it will make sense with where we're going to go with the conversation from a biological perspective and sort of like what is ingrained in us, right? So I think a lot of people don't know, or a lot of women don't fully understand that like that morning sunlight it helps your body produce melatonin and then what's also called subcellular melatonin. And subcellular melatonin is melatonin that is helping the hormonal functions of your body actually work. So I don't know if you guys know this, but melatonin is very important to the hormonal cycle of the month. And actually, there's a lot of melatonin that's secreted in your ovaries. And the reason why is because that calming hormone helps your ovaries signal things like ovulation, helps create a corpus luteum that's very functional, helps create sufficient progesterone signaling, excuse me. But the point of what I'm saying is that like that alone, seeing that sunlight in the morning alone can help reset your body in a way that might not seem like a big deal day 1, but day 30 of doing it, I promise you, you will notice a difference. So in the morning, um, I actually go outside and brush my teeth outside in the sun. And so I will like wake up, I'll put my little, non-toxic toothpaste on my toothbrush and I'll walk outside in my pajamas and stand on our back porch and look at the sun while I brush my teeth. And I have like a big garden outside as well, which like, by the way, guys, I lived in cities for 10 years. So this is very new within the last year, but this is what it looks like for me now. I like go outside, kind of assess my garden while I'm brushing my teeth, go like do my oil pulling while I water my garden and all of my plants. And then while that's happening, I'm brewing my decaf coffee. So I do, sorry if this is too specific, but I feel like
Go into all of the detail. I love it.
people like to know the details. So while that's going, I like to brew. I use Kion, Kion decaf coffee. It's mold free, mycotoxin free, organic. When I tell you, you can tell the difference. Marissa, have you had it?
We just talked to my acupuncturist and he said if you're going to drink coffee, it has to be that.
Yeah, it's the best. It's the best. So we do Kion coffee and I'll just like, I'm really into drip coffee right now. Sometimes I'll do espresso, but I'm really into drip and I'll just do like some raw honey and some raw cream or like some organic heavy cream in my coffee, grab my mug and like, to be honest, I'll still have my pajamas on and go for a little walk in my neighborhood. My neighbors are like so chill, they don't care. But it's just like really important to get outside early in the morning. And that walk, not only does it like help, get the sunlight in my eyes, but it also gets my digestion going. It gets everything sort of moving. So like when you're seeing all this stuff on Instagram, just to, do a little side quest here, I have all the tools, you guys. Like I have the vibration plate. I have the red light panel. Walking outside in the morning with morning sunlight is nature's vibration plate and red light panel. Like you don't need to buy all that stuff. Like that's your biohack right there. That is NANA approved. That has been happening since the beginning of time, and it's actually going to make you feel so much better than all these man-made products that are also going to cost you thousands of dollars. So I do that. I always eat like a nutrient-dense breakfast pretty early. I try to, and that's usually like. Honestly, I'll do like 4 eggs cooked in butter, maybe some homemade sourdough bread, some avocado. I like to do fruit. I saw something the other day that was like, if you have an orange with eggs, you're actually eating every single vitamin and nutrient that you could possibly need. So sometimes I'll have like some orange juice in the morning with my eggs, and that's kind of the morning. And usually I'll train after that. So I really try to eat before I train. And my training, I'll do like Pilates a few times a week, but I'm really into the heavy weights right now, which I never thought I would be, to be honest. But I think the science is just like undeniable at this point about how lifting heavy weights is so important when we are premenopausal, especially, the way that you can change the epigenetics of your children before they're even in utero just by lifting heavy weights is absolutely insane. So I'm doing a lot of weight training, but nothing crazy. Like I'm not really stressing myself out too much. Like my workouts are hard, but they are very calming, which is really important to me. I'm not like I'm not like a cyclist. Like I've done all of that in my early 20s and kind of got it out of my system. And sometimes it can be fun every once in a while, but this is sort of how I live now. And then I really like to, after I work out, come home and do a meditation either outside with like a hat on to not get sun all over my face, Or if it's not nice weather, I'll like put on my red light mask and sit and do a meditation. But again, that's optional. I'm just kind of like walking you through my day now. Is this
Keep
like
going. I love it. That's what people want to hear.
okay? Okay. And then I jump into work. And at this point, it's probably like 11 o'clock. And again, like benefits of working for yourself, but like I have a lot of meetings and creating content and like shooting branded content, or I'll go record podcasts. It really just depends on the day. But that's kind of it. And like from a nutrition perspective, I keep it so simple. It would, I think, shock most people. Like, yes, I love to make delicious, nutritious meals. But at my core, I eat protein, I eat fruits and vegetables. I love organic, like dairy. I love organic pasta. Like, I eat everything. I just try to eat it in its least processed, most nutritious form. So if I'm having a loaf of bread, I'll have ideally sourdough or like slow fermented bread. If I'm having pasta, I like do not F with the chickpea like BS stuff that like will hurt my stomach. I go for organic, like normal pasta where the ingredients are like durum wheat semolina and water. And that makes me feel amazing. But like my dietary approach is really like you can eat anything, just make it at home with really good nutritious ingredients and you're gonna feel really good.
What is your go-to?
Snack.
Yeah.
So, to be honest, I eat very whole meals. So, I'm not much of a snacker, but if I'm going to do a snack, I will do. Have you guys had Prima bars yet?
Oh, yeah. Wait, I haven't had one, but someone was just telling me about these.
Like literally on my desk right now, in case I get hypoglycemic during this. But I love a Prima bar if I'm like on, kind of like running around. I'll grab some like boiled eggs. I love the Lineage meat sticks. If you haven't tried those, they have organ meats in them. They're really good. I do like dates with raw butter, which is so delicious. If you haven't tried that with some sea salt on top, it like tastes divine. Or honestly, a lot of the time, I'll just throw some milk in a shaker cup with some protein powder, which I don't do a ton of protein powder, but if I'm like on the go and need easy protein, I'll have that.
So I want to give a plus, like the walking outside in the morning changed my life. And it's interesting because it kind of speaks to intuition a little bit in terms of the fact that I just found that one day and I hadn't heard anyone tell me to do that, but I started doing it and I just noticed I felt so much better and I kept doing it.
Yeah.
And something that kills me is so many people are anxious and depressed and are told that you need like an SSRI or need this or that. And it's like, I'm not saying that this cures everything, but the number of people who are on those medications who do not go outside in their day and are scrolling on their phone until they go to sleep, changing my phone scrolling habits and going outside in the morning improved my mental health in ways that I can't even say. And so I just think like it's not only for your kind of overall health, it actually literally impacts your day-to-day mood in such a way that I have found that I would not even like qualify myself as having, depression or anxiety or anything anymore with those two changes like alone. And then on the food side, you mentioned earlier that you used to struggle with disordered eating. Now you
Yeah.
eat everything. I think there's so much of this conversation around like there's more and more like calorie trackers, there's more and more ways to supplement your food or change your food. How did you arrive at eating those like I'm going to eat anything I want, these really whole foods, especially coming from that kind of background of an approach to food?
Yeah, I mean, just on the walking thing quickly, I completely agree with you. I also think like it is easy in the world that we live in to fall into depression and anxiety. And like, believe me, guys, I've been there. I don't know anyone who has or anyone who has not. But yes, getting outside in the morning and then making sure that you are doing something hard every day and something for somebody else every day has literally changed my life. And I got this from my husband, who has had a way more intense life than I have or most of the people that I know have. And the word depression and anxiety, like, don't even enter his mental, like, ecosystem. Because he's like, I am so oriented on doing something for somebody else every day, whether that's like, grabbing the old lady's groceries and carrying them to her car for them or for her, or, opening the door for people, like whatever, and doing something hard every day. And like the heavy weightlifting, not to, you know, ride this bull too hard. For women, I just think it's so incredible for this. Like, I went into my workout so anxious this morning and came out and was like, this is going to be the best day of my life. With the food stuff, we have all of that, like you said, calorie counters and ways to modify our diet. But we also have GLP-1s now. And to me, it is very concerning what I am seeing with the GLP-1s and young women who are of like very normal body type and are being prescribed these drugs because they are drugs. And I understand that for some people, these are going to be life changing. They are not a permanent fix to anything, the same way that my eating disorder was not a permanent fix to anything. And if I could tell myself when I was 19 years old and started engaging in that like orthorexic behavior and being super obsessed with food, like, hey, this story doesn't end well. Like, this is actually not going to get you to a place that's healthier. It's going to put you in a spiral of misery that at your current junction, you can't even imagine. I would love to be able to give myself that advice. But it was a many years of reorienting myself around food and realizing that like the cure to an eating disorder, and this is, I'm not an eating disorder therapist, this is for me specifically, is that you cannot have restriction around food. Because any sort of restriction around food pushes you into a binge cycle, right? And I was never like a crazy binger, but when you're dealing with anorexia, any small slip outside of that control feels like akin to that. So what I would say is there is an equal and opposite reaction to everything, right? What is that? Newton's law?
Yep.
I think. And that is very much tied to your relationship with food. So if you go on a very restrictive diet for 3 months, a lot of people do this for their weddings, for example. Really restrictive diet for 3 months. You're like absolutely crushing it in the gym, eating, 1,200 calories a day, being very restricted with yourself. I promise you, you will binge eventually. It might take 6 months, it might take a year, but you will spiral out of control and you will binge. And so I saw this pattern in my life and the pattern and in so many women that I was close to in their lives. I was like, I don't want to do this anymore. I don't want to have this type of relationship with myself and with food. For those people who are not watching, it's like the highs are high and the lows are low. You're constantly riding the wave. I just want to be like steady. So when I started allowing myself to eat everything and also like, as much as you don't want to be counting macros and stuff like that, really getting enough protein and fat in my diet because I was very much born out of like the vegan era of like everyone is plant-based. Once I started adding those two things in abundance and not restricting myself at all around food, it took me a couple of years for everything to even out, but now I can say I have the healthiest relationship with food that I could possibly have. Like, if I don't want something, I don't eat it. If I want something, I eat it and I don't eat too much of it. It's just like a very enjoyable experience. And when I was in the throes of my eating disorder, and this is the last thing I'll say on this, I would roll my eyes when someone would say a term like intuitive eating. Like, I would be like, yeah, like, get real. That does not exist. It might exist for you, but like, I'm addicted to this behavior in my life. So, like, there's no way that that could ever be me. If you're listening to this and you are in the throes of that, it can be you because I was just like you and it's me now, where like I do have this very intuitive, very harmonious relationship with food that feels very relaxing and nourishing at its core, not like any sort of friction whatsoever.
So important. I also think the question that gets missed a lot with especially GLP-1s, the marketing is we'll cancel out the food noise for you. It's why is there food noise? What is driving this addiction? I was very similar. Food for me was like such emotional comfort. I would escape any hard feeling, any feeling of feeling out of control in my life, any feeling of fear with overeating, thinking about what my next snack is, like baking something and overeating it, overeating a health food because I had so much rules and rigidity around it. It was like an obsession around control, but I would always overdo it. So if it was like in my list of foods and I could have as much as that I wanted of it, but it was always a way to dissociate from myself. It was to avoid feeling and sitting with discomfort because food tastes good. It heightens your senses and it gives you an immediate hit of dopamine and serotonin and the ability to escape something that you don't want to feel. So I think that that's the other thing with GLP-1s and all of this rigidity around food and eating is what are we avoiding? Like, what are we going to food to escape? And can we learn to sit with that?
Yes, 100. And I think the claim that like it's curing people's food noise, like, it might cure your food noise temporarily because it makes you not want to eat. But at its core, it is suppressing your desire to consume something. And like you said, just totally vacate yourself to a certain degree and like the pain that you're feeling in certain areas of your life. And we know, like, I hate to be the bearer of bad news on this, but it's very clear in clinical trial data that 80%, 80% of people who go on a GLP-1 will regain the weight within 1 year of discontinuing a GLP-1. And that's only within 1 year. Like, think about the results in 3 years. Most people will have regained the weight and then some. So it's like we get, very tied up in like, what is the next quick fix? What is the next thing that we can do to try and like quickly alter the ailment that we're going through. But the reality is, with something like food that will always be in your face for the rest of your life, the only way to get to a good place with it is to go through the hardship of working on your relationship with it and like truly making a change. Because again, like I never thought I would be in this place ever where I was like not controlled by food whatsoever and am able to eat whatever I want and not give it two thoughts. And at the same time, you think when you're in these spirals, like if I were to eat whatever I want, I would like be just like pounding french fries and like burgers all the time and chicken fingers and like pizza. That's not the case at all. Like when you have a great relationship with food, do I sometimes have fun things and like, yeah, I'll do the french fries and I'll do whatever? Of course. But my baseline that I really enjoy and love coming back to is like whole foods, lots of fruits and veggies, lots of really high quality proteins, and that's kind of it.
Well, and this totally just comes back to the same thing we were saying about like getting off your phone, being in nature. It's like if we, especially with our diets, can come back to how we were intended to eat and we can start viewing food just differently, just like anything else, your body will balance out the rest. And I think one of the things that I got to was, you said, oh, people will gain the weight back after they go off a GLP. Of course, of course. It shocks me that anyone is surprised by that because the drug itself is silencing a symptom. It's not curing you of anything in the same way that if you go off of the sleeping pill or the antidepressant or the hormonal birth control, whatever it's masking underneath is going to come back and be there. And once I realized that, because I was on tons of medications, like something like 80% of Americans are on at least one prescription medication, which, again, we talk about why it's like people profit off of that. People don't profit when you're healthy. But if as soon as you come off that medication, whatever is there is going to be there unless you deal with it. So you kind of have two choices at the end of the day. You're going to be on a pill for the rest of your life that will likely become less effective with time, and you're going to require more pills, and the symptoms will create a need for more pills. Or you have to do the really hard thing. And I'm not saying all drug, of course, all the disclaimers, but in general, like if you don't deal with the thing underneath the thing, it's going to come back, it's going to come up. And when you realize that, it makes it, at least for me, it really motivated me to actually get to the bottom of it and change my life. And once I did, I'm very pleasantly surprised to figure out like, oh, my body actually knows what to do and it knows how to be.
1000%. Like, if there is one message that I could give to everyone, it's that healing is the rule, not the exception. Our
Yeah.
bodies want to be in perfect health. Like, that is our natural state. The difficult thing is that we are bombarded with toxins of our choosing and just environmental things that we would never choose if we were given the option because of the world that we live in. But once you give your body the space to truly heal and kind of like create an environment where all of the, not even all, but like most of the things are right and the things that are happening are going in the direction of healing, it's crazy what your body will do.
This is going to be a hard conversation to wrap up because I think both of us could talk to you all day.
Like what?
I want to wrap with one question. You have such an incredible take on emotions being the root of illness. And
Yeah.
loosening control and being embodied and doing things that are just truly, truly nourishing to your soul, not nourishing to like, the external
Yeah.
and the optimization culture and all of that. You talk about emotional prevention and how we can emotionally prevent illness. What
Yeah.
is one thing that you do on a daily basis to keep to keep yourself in a state of good emotional health?
Oh, just one. I mean, I do think it's that morning walk. I think it's the morning walk that is like very reflective for me. No phone, like I said. Just coffee, the sun, the birds, my thoughts, prayer. And like that, if you are in any sort of creative pursuit, that is so important to creativity as well. I think we're so tapped into like, oh, my creativity will come from seeing something that inspires me. But actually, a lot of the time, your creativity is really blossomed when you're just totally silent.
Yes. It's so funny that you say that, but Marissa and I were both talking about this week. But
Yeah.
starting a business, working for yourself, as you very well know, it's like go, 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 whether it's travel or just you could literally, like last night, both of us were texting, working until 11 p.m. Like it is
Yeah.
very easy to not carve out time for yourself. And I had an epiphany on Monday night. I was just so stressed, so wired, so short. Like I just felt so like snippy and irritable. And I was like, what is missing? Like what is going on? And I was like, I have not just leaned into the pure joy of creativity. So I
Yeah.
literally shut my computer before a call. I had like an hour window, went for a 30-minute silent walk, and I baked cookies, listening to a
Hmm.
podcast that I love for fun. It was like gossip, nothing educational or relevant. And I immediately returned to myself. It's like that intrinsic motivation and creativity is so nurturing.
So nurturing, so relaxing. And yeah, I think it's like, it truly is figure out what your thing is. But like for me, same thing, like cooking dinner while I like watch some dumb Gilmore Girls or something like that. That's like an old school show that like brings me peace. It's like the most relaxing thing. Again, like I think it helps to really step out of the fact that all of this is so deep because like I said at the top of the podcast, and I know that this is like, kind of a gruesome or morbid thing to say, like, we are all going to die. We are. And if on our deathbeds, the most important thing, at least for me, like, I am so happy that I have the opportunity to have a business and to, work with incredible brands and invest in incredible brands and walk alongside founders and do all of these like cool things, travel, etc. But at the end of the day, like, I want my legacy to be something that a lot of people don't see, which is like, how I treat the people around me, how I, nurture my relationship with myself, my husband, God, my siblings, my family, my eventual children. And I think for a lot of people, I feel like that shift happens when they have kids where they're like, oh, whoa, like nothing else matters. But I think I'm trying to have that earlier where I'm like, it all matters to a certain degree, but there is a level of importance to everything. And at the end of the day, like a lot of this just is not that deep. It's very fun and it's very exciting, but like those things should not ruin our lives or make us anxious or sad or, upset.
Amen. Just real quick, but what you just said reminds me of like all the health optimization stuff that's out there and returning to the basics. It's the same thing with your time, like trying to optimize every minute for productivity and impact and this and that. It's like coming back to the things that our soul needs for joy that don't have like a measurable impact in our career or whatever, and how you treat people. And those are those things are in the same way you need whole foods for your body to run, like you need those things for your soul to run. And ultimately, I do think like our soul health is the foundation of our physical health. And
100%.
so, yeah, not underestimating like those relationships, that time that isn't productive is so important.
Totally agree.
I like that, Marissa. That was really a cool way to think about that.
Yeah, really good.
I mean, and that inspired me with the how you treat people thing. It's
I love
real.
that. So real. Amazing, Anna. I don't want to wrap, but I guess we have to. I literally could have you on all day. Where can people find you?
So you can find me on Instagram and TikTok. It's at like the @ sign, Feel Well by Anna. I feel like you don't even have to say the @ anymore. It's just Feel Well by Anna. And then I'm on YouTube, Feel Well by Anna, but I don't really post, to be honest. My biggest things right now, aside from Instagram, is my podcast, which is called Back to Basics, and my Substack, which is the same name, Back to Basics. And it's all like my podcast is all about exploring very candid alternative health conversations. So there's a lot of topics that are covered that are like so out there, candidly, but it's a fun place to really talk about things that maybe aren't like totally normalized in the health zeitgeist right now, but are up and coming and all of those things. So, yeah, I
Amazing.
will look forward to hearing from anyone who listens. Let us know how you like the show.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much, Anna, and we will talk to you soon.
Talk to you soon. Thanks, guys.
Bye.
Bye.
If something in today's conversation resonated with you, take a moment to pause and notice where it's sitting within you.
Living in alignment is not about fixing yourself or becoming someone new. It's about listening, trusting, and slowly coming home to who you already are.
Thank you for spending this time with us and for being part of this community.
If you enjoyed this episode, you can subscribe, leave a review, or share it with someone who might resonate with it too. See you next time.